Well, we just spoke to Ros Knight for the Australian Psychological Society. She was talking about anger management. The other aspect I wanted to look at tonight was prompted by an announcement made by the AFL in Melbourne today by their boss, Gil McLachlan. Now, as you know, we're doing this program every Tuesday night based on my belief that the issue of mental well-being is something that we need to talk about as a country. The AFL has now made the statement today that they believe that mental health is a bigger issue in their sport than drugs or gambling. Gil McLachlan said he thinks it's the biggest issue in AFL football, and they have decided that they're going to appoint $75,000 or allocate $75,000 per club for mental health support, and they will appoint a mental health manager at the AFL, not just for the mental well-being of elite athletes and players, but for staff and coaches as well. Now, Jay Hedley is the managing partner at the Coaching Room, who's done a lot of work with elite sport, including the Waratahs and Fiji Rugby, in terms of high performance. I wonder if he believes that the mental well-being of elite athletes is as fragile as that. He's on the line. Good to talk to you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Very interesting that the most watched sport in Australia, the wealthiest sport in Australia, has decided that not drugs, not gambling, that mental health is the most dangerous issue for their players. What do you make of that?
I'm not sure what to make of it. It's not my experience we call mental health attitude. Mm-hmm. So it's the attitude of the player. These are really, in my experience, these are high-performance athletes at the very, very top of their game. I don't experience them as unhealthy. And so that's the first message that we give them, is that you're at the top of the game, you're actually very healthy. Some of the practices in your thinking strategies and your thinking structures may not serve you, but that doesn't make you unhealthy. And so then we start to talk about how do they create healthy habits. And so I can see the perspective of, that mental health is a real issue in sport. I don't see it, although I do value that they're paying some attention to the well-being of players and supporting them in becoming better ambassadors for having a high-quality attitude that goes with high performance.
They've had a raft of players that have had to step away from the game for various periods of time. The latest one was a St Kilda player last week that's decided he can't keep going for several weeks because he describes himself as being mentally burnt out. The most famous case in Sydney was Buddy Franklin, who walked away from the Swans at the end of a season 2 years ago and missed a final series because he said he was mentally shot. What do those terms actually mean?
They mean that they're applying pressure to themselves, and in our world, they're projecting that out onto the world as in, the sport's giving me the pressure, but really they're applying their own pressure. So what happens with pressure is you look outside of yourself and you imagine what other people imagine in terms of expectations, and then you take those expectations and you apply them to yourself. And so that's how to get into a real mental state where you are experiencing, poor experiences and feelings in your body, and so that begins to express itself, and the meaningfulness goes out of the game, and now I'm just playing the game to play the game. There's no meaningfulness. That's where burnout comes from.
How do you stop that happening in an athlete?
You don't stop it, they've got to stop it. And so first and foremost, giving them responsibility by showing them how they're creating their own experience, that it's nothing out there. It looks like that there's pressure from the fans. It looks like there's pressure from the media, but there isn't any pressure, Steve. The pressure's an internal job. It's an inside job. And once we help the athlete actually understand how they're creating their own internal reality about the external reality, we ask them to start quality checking that reality. And what that means is it serving them? Is it enabling them to be their best? What's the positive intention of such a strategy? And are they achieving that positive intention? When they realize that they're not, then we ask them, would you like to create a different strategy for yourself? Do you see you're not the problem, your strategy is?
You work with the Waratahs, and I know you've got a strong view on sports psychology. You don't really believe that there's a place for sports psychology, do you?
Well, psychology is very useful. Please don't get me wrong on that. Psychology is a really useful thing, but it's a remedial field, and it's remedying illness, and you know it is remedying depression and real core structures like that. We're not about doing that. We're about awakening people to their true potential through how they create meaningfulness in what they do. That drives how they go about doing what they're doing. That drives their actions and their behaviours to be and do things differently. Psychology is really looking at what's not working. We're looking at what is working and how to make it work even better. So from our perspective, it's true, I don't think psychology has a place, particularly remedial psychology has a place in sport, but I do think developmental psychology has a place in sport, because that's about unlocking and unleashing the potential through self-actualization, and that's where it's very useful.
We're talking to Jay Hedley, managing partner at the Coaching Room. So you get a youngster who's incredibly talented, early 20s, got massive potential, but is not quite getting there. How do you realise that potential then? How do you convince them that they're as good as they are? I mean, I guess Nick Kyrgios is the classic example. He's just won the Mexican Open, whereas he's been through months of self-doubt and wanting to quit and not playing and feeling like he's injured. Suddenly he wins a $500,000 tournament, and even then he can't say, look how good I am. He said, well, I won despite myself.
Yeah, he did. And so someone like Nick Kyrgios is really pitting himself against himself. And so we call that an internal polarity that he's running, which is likely to be associated with a self-belief structure that runs his personality about himself. In sitting down with Nick and helping him find out the truth of what truly is going on with him has got nothing to do with tennis. Tennis is just a way in which it plays out for him. We'll help him unravel and unlock that. So the first thing, Steve, is we help people find their blind spots. We help them see what they can't see but is right in front of them. And those are the self-beliefs, the beliefs about reality that are old beliefs that are no longer serving them. You see, when they created these beliefs, they weren't supremely high-performance athletes. They were kids and teenagers trying to find a way in which to connect, relate, and belong to groups, and where are my friends? Where are the like-minded people? When they created these beliefs, they weren't at the top of their game like they are now. Yet they're still holding on to these old beliefs. We help them put those old beliefs down so that they can go self-actualize and become the potential that they are. So blind spots, beliefs, even value systems, identity patterns and structures, particularly thinking patterns and thinking structures, we help make them and move them from being outside of awareness to inside of awareness so that they can actively start to change them.
How'd you like to work on Nick as a project?
I would love to work on Nick. I think Nick is supremely talented, but gets himself in the way. And I think he could have the potential, and Roger Federer said the same thing, that he could be, without doubt, the best tennis player on the planet. And really all he needs is someone to sit with him and help him unravel the stuff he's bound himself up in.
You do a lot of work with coaches, so you've got a coach of a group of talented athletes.
Yeah.
It must be important to get the coach in the right frame of mind so that flows down to the group. Is that right?
Critical. So coaches not only have got to run their own brain, but they've got to influence and awaken people to their potential. So we work with coaches in their ability to communicate with themselves more effectively in terms of understanding how motivation works, and then being able to communicate more effectively by understanding how people like to receive information. And so then they feed forward information not from their preferences, but to the preferences of the people receiving the information. They become far more influential. They learn how to clarify and get their message across really clearly and really simplistically. And this is the element of coaching that most people miss. It's not to complexify things, but to simplify things, and by understanding how language works so that they can transform their language to be able to be received by the listener. And all of that gives them massive influence, and it is the coaches like Wayne Bennett in rugby league who have and are able to hold that influence with people because they are people. And coaches must go past the tactical, technical into becoming developmentalists themselves. And those coaches are going to be the coaches of the future.
Jay Hedley, Managing Partner at the Coaching Room. Pleasure to catch up with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
You're listening to Nights with Steve Price. Call now and have your say on 131 873.
And when you have those conversations, it's quite extraordinary, isn't it? Imagine what's going on in rugby league at the moment and trying to deal with some of those egos and issues. It would be extremely difficult. But on the Nick Kyrgios issue, 23 years old, described by John McEnroe as being the most talented player that he has seen in the last 10 years. And Nick Kyrgios goes out and wins the Mexican Open like that and shows that he does have that ability. It's just those mental demons that he has to conquer. And if he can conquer those, who knows what Nick Kyrgios could be? I mean, this is a guy who could go out and easily win a major tournament. So good luck to him. Really good luck to him.